The Interstitials went through a story process just like any of our other segments. In fact, Jerry Reese, director that we've worked with in the past, we brought in with a concept of doing the Interstitials, and Don Hahn and Kirk Hansen came up with a story concept for the Interstitials, and that's the one we finally went with. Don Hahn's original concept for the sails in the Interstitials, actually, he dreamt up at lunchtime one day and sketched them out on a napkin while he was eating lunch.
And I thought, wouldn't it be great if you just took that artwork and tilted it up and surrounded the orchestra with all these big panels of art? It's a little like story sketches pinned to a storyboard or frames of film. And those panels can carry with them images and pieces of artwork that can underline what our presenters are saying.
Well, when Don Hahn asked me to be involved in the Interstitials, it was as a production designer. He had some idea and a concept of what he wanted, basically to set up the orchestra pit in the middle of nowhere, probably in the middle of your imagination. What would that look like? So I figured, well, if we're going to set up the sails in the middle of your imagination, why don't we make the sails out of a material that you've never seen before? It's translucent, transparent. It was pretty exciting. And we worked out the first sequence where all the sails fly in and set up in the middle of space.
What we've done with the Interstitials is sort of an homage to the original, where they had the orchestra with shadows on the background, and we've created a whole orchestra that there are shadows on these panels behind them.
We still have color in the shadows, but we've given this particular go-around of Fantasia a year 2000 look.
The Interstitials are put together by a lot of little film clips that we've shot all around the States. For example, we went to New York to pick up Itzhak Perlman and Bette Midler, and in Los Angeles to get James Earl Jones and Angela Lansbury. All those pieces were shot over something we call a green screen, which is simply a big screen that's painted green. And what we can do with the help of computer graphics is take that green out of the shot and replace it with a beautiful set piece behind the character. With that technique, then, as the person's talking, we can have these beautiful images of artwork appear behind the presenter when he or she are presenting the next sequence. And it gives you something more than just a person talking on screen. It gives you the added plus of being able to see some of the artwork that went into making these pieces.
We would never be able to build this set in any sound stage. So we used a computer to help realize this.
The Steve Martin to Itzhak Perlman sequence when Steve throws his bow.
Oh, sorry. Could I have another stick thingy, please? Oh,
that whole sequence is a very good example of how we had to put and create a reality out of many different parts. The orchestra was shot in Los Angeles. The Steve Martin portion was not shot at the same time as when we had that orchestra. We had to shoot Steve many, many, many months later. And somewhere between the time that we shot the orchestra and we shot Steve Martin, we shot Itzhak Perlman in New York. Those three components and marrying them together is one thing, so none of them were there at the same time. On top of that, the material that's in the background, all of the stuff for Steve Martin, especially all his whole sequences, was done at one time and is all computer generated. It's not what was back there when we shot the orchestra at all. And as well as you pan over to Itzhak Perlman, the material there actually was generated at a different time than the material behind Steve Martin, even on the computer. So we had elements for Steve behind him and elements behind Itzhak that all came together to make you feel like you were in just one place at one time.
So with the help of special effects and computer graphics, we're able to kind of combine all those diverse pieces together into something that hopefully is very seamless. So even though on the day when we had 150 people sitting in the orchestra with James Levine and a big remote camera head on a 150-foot crane trying to shoot the shot, the irony of it all is we want the audience to forget that we did all that and come to the theater and just believe that these beautiful sails are flying in from nowhere as though they've been drifting through time, and have them settle in this giant kind of plain of clouds and form this little Stonehenge of a concert pit. And out of that rises all the musicians, and they put on this show for us. And just be swept away by that feeling like we're in a dream. And that dream is Fantasia 2000.